Welcome, I am Sean, and this is episode 27 of BL4 Lore, and today we are tackling Ebrietas, Daughter of the Cosmos. Before actually fighting Ebrietas, I wanted to talk some lore, her background, sort of what theories are about who she is and what's going on with her and the choir. So I'm gonna let myself here go crawling around, and I'll explain some lore, and then we will jump in and talk about fighting her once we get to my successful attempt. So Ebrietas comes from the Land of Eyes, ISZ, and this Land of Eyes was discovered by the choir when they delved back into the labyrinth and they recovered the Great Eyes Chalice, which granted them audience with Ebrietas. And the Land of Eyes, according to the Eyes Root Chalice, says that it lies in contact with the cosmos, which allowed the Great Ones to function on transcendental planes of thought. Basically, what you can pull from that is that the Great Ones were physical beings who were not transcendent, but because of the contact with the cosmos and eyes, they were able to transcend, which they had the Thumerians looking after them. Basically, they were able to slumber and leave their physical bodies and move into the dream or the cosmos. And not all of them chose to, though. And the big thing about Ebrietas is she's a left-behind Great One. And it becomes interesting, why was she left behind, or did she choose to stay behind? And on the Reddit post, The Ascension of the Great Ones to Godhood, Tomb Inspector, they start by talking about how the Great Ones appear to be this group of beings where they're each their own species. They can't reproduce normally, so they need somebody else. In this case, the Thumerians, they need to impregnate them, they need to ascend them, using blood. They need to find a way to take another being and basically have them reproduce or, transform with them. So, with that in mind, Tomb Inspector in their post argues that the children, however, since they are not pure Great Ones, did not survive the ascension. Their bodies lied in slumber, yet their consciousness did not reach the dream world. Basically, the children, not being true Great Ones, were not able to transcend in the same way. And what you're seeing here, potentially, could be Ebrietas looking at her child Rom's body. So, and you could look at this as either the corpse of Rom that we fought, or potentially this is a slumbering Rom who attempted to transcend, but somehow ended up in the Moonside Lake or something. So, either way, the idea is that Ebrietas stayed behind for Rom because she did not want to leave her. And so now she, after being granted audience with her, the choir is working with Ebrietas in order to reach out in the cosmos and quote-unquote achieve true greatness. So that's one interpretation, that Ebrietas was a Great One who chose not to transcend for Rom. But in the Pale Blood Hunt, Redgrave in chapters 1 and 2 talks about Ebrietas, and he argues that Ebrietas may have been a source of the old blood in the labyrinth when Bergenworth was looking, and that the choir was later able to get full audience with her through the chalice, but also that, as I mentioned in the last episode, that Ebrietas was also a source of the blood that the church ended up administering to the city, that the old blood comes from Ebrietas and the kin, and the Celestials. And sort of on that slip, actually, Redgrave does not believe that Ebrietas is a true Great One. As you're about to see, her head actually bleeds a clear-looking liquid that Redgrave has dubbed serum, and her body bleeds red. Yet other great ones found in the game, they bleed red. But kin bleed this serum, with the idea being that their blood's sort of been purified in some way. But following up on this, Ebrietas is weak to bolt, and she is affected by kin hunter gems, which means mechanically she's treated like kin, whereas great ones don't have these same weaknesses. So, for that reason, he argues that she's kin, but he agrees with Tomb Inspector that Rom is her child. So, and he believes that perhaps Ebrietas was an ascended female. So those are a couple explanations of who Ebrietas is and what she's doing with the choir. Now let's get into the fight. The BL4 fight, which was a tough one, for sure. I mean, if you've watched any other things, or if you fought Ebrietas, you know, the big thing is the headbutt, you know, her charge attack, very dangerous. And I tried a few strategies of staying close, fighting far away. I ended up going with the strategy where you're trying to bait head slams. And so I'm using Bolt and a blood pellet to do more damage. And with the charge attack, I found that staying far enough back and just dodging sideways twice, you're able to sort of get around her. It sort of became something I got a feel for, but as long as I wasn't too close, I could handle it. Come up, hit, transform attack, helps get the meter up. Generally, just even having the beast blood pellet really helps your damage output. But yeah, I'm keeping my distance, trying not to get backed in a corner, waiting for head slams. And if I found myself too close when she does a charge, I just took the hit, because if you try to dodge and you still get clipped by one of the hitboxes, it'll instant kill you at BL4, and even with quite a few levels, it can pretty much one-shot you. It's actually better to just take the hit than try and dodge and get hit by a counter hit, which will do more damage and one-shot you. Take my opportunities to hit the head, break the head. Try to do a charge attack followed by some transform. And that was a dangerous one. I really should have just taken the hit there. But she starts doing blood attacks after you get about 80%. After she's down to about 80% health, maybe 75. And one more thing I wanted to add about the charge is if she does a charge, I found that it's good to follow up and try to hit her leg, tail, whatever it is on the way back, because it seems like it baits a head slam after. And overall, so she's transforming now, which is a great chance to get a bunch of attacks in. But overall, it really comes down to a bunch of RNG about how much she does head slams, which she didn't do a ton here, but it's just a matter of time before, you know, a mistake's made or you get into an awkward position. So I almost got her there. She falls up. Take a pretty risky move right here and just run in and slap her. But it worked. So I guess that all worked out. And yeah, so that's Ebrietas, blood level 4. I chose to bait the head slams and eventually just learn her attacks. She has a few, but the thing is about her attacks are pretty easily dodged, or they're really tough to dodge and will one-shot you. So one attack actually not shown here is her infamous exploding star, you know, magic missile attack, and the best way to dodge that is just to unlock, run the opposite direction, and start doing like zigzags was the best way I found to counter that. Before wrapping up the episode, I wanted to circle back to a couple things I missed, and one is in the A Call Beyond item description. It talks about this lofty plane of darkness, and that piqued my interest, and I thought about what that could mean, and I think the explanation might be pretty simple, that this lofty plane of darkness that they're talking about is actually just space. The choir says that the sky and the cosmos are one. We know from at least Lovecraft stuff that the dreamlands, they're actually these physical places. That could be out there somewhere. So I think the explanation is pretty simple. I think the choir was able to sort of take they were able to reach out into space. Like, they have their celestial emissaries. They're able to reach out into space, but they weren't able to reach all the way to where the Great Ones were able to get in their dreamlands. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the Altar of Despair. And looking around, so this is located below the Grand Cathedral, below ground level where he saw it. So this would probably put it at least at sewer level in Yharnam, which definitely gives the impression that this existed prior to the Grand Cathedral being here. And in Aegon's Let's Talk Lore 22, I believe, he discusses in some length how this place appears as if it could be part of the Chalice dungeons, which isn't an unreasonable thing. It could even go back to the time of Bergenworth, where they're excavating, going through the tombs, and they find their holy medium, and they decide to build their grand cathedral right over top of it, which doesn't seem unreasonable to me, and it doesn't seem unreasonable that the Healing Church would want some sort of connection to the labyrinth from here. So yeah, just an interesting thing to think about. I don't know, in that scenario, I don't know if this is where they found Ebrietas or where Rom's either slumbering or deceased body is located, but it definitely has the appearance that it could be part of the labyrinth. And on that note, I believe that covers Ebrietas, her lore, and the fight at Blood Level 4. I hope you've enjoyed this change in format, having this episode dedicated to just Ebrietas and taking a look at her from a gameplay perspective and from a narrative and lore perspective. So let me know if you enjoy this shorter, more focused video, and thanks for watching.